Lyrian pressed herself deeper into the shadowed alley as smoke billowed through the merchant quarter. The grain storage had been burning since dawn, and the fire was spreading faster than the bucket brigade could contain it. She needed to move. Her makeshift shelter behind the tannery would be consumed within the hour. 17 years. 17 years since Merchant Valdric had bought her for a bag of grain, and she still wore the iron collar that marked her as property. The metal had worn smooth against her neck, a constant reminder that she was worth exactly 20 pounds of wheat. At 25, she'd spent more years as property than as a person. The crackling flames grew louder. Lyrian darted from the alley, keeping low, her practiced movements those of someone who'd learned to be invisible. The main square churned with panic merchants salvaging what they could, guards trying to maintain order, children crying as their parents dragged them from danger. Then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong to the chaos. Whimpering, high and desperate, coming from the collapsing stable near the fire's edge. Lyrian froze. The stable's roof was already catching. In minutes, it would be an inferno. She should run. She was nobody, a purchased girl with scarred hands from years of labor. Saving her own life was challenge enough. The whimper came again, weaker now. "Damn the gods," she muttered, changing direction. The stable door had warped from the heat, jammed shut. Lyrian grabbed a broken cart, spoke and leveraged it open, smoke immediately attacking her lungs. Inside, the darkness was absolute except for the orange glow creeping across the ceiling beams. "Where are you?" she called out, coughing. A response, not a whimper but a growl, young and terrified. Following the sound, she found not a child but a wolf cub, its hind leg twisted in a collapsed stall beam. Its eyes gleamed with an otherworldly luminescence in the smoky darkness, too bright to be natural. A distinctive white crescent marked its chest. A wolf cub, in the merchant quarter, during a fire. Nothing about this made sense, but Lyrian didn't hesitate. She wedged the spoke under the beam, straining against the weight. The cub snapped at her, drawing blood from her palm. "I'm trying to help you, little demon," she gasped, putting her full weight into lifting. The beam shifted. The cub pulled free just as burning debris crashed where they'd been standing. Lyrian scooped up the injured creature, surprised by how light it felt, and stumbled toward what she hoped was the exit. The doorway had become a rectangle of flame. Lyrian clutched the cub tighter and ran through it. The pain was immediate and absolute. Her threadbare dress caught fire. She rolled in the dirt, smothering the flames, still protecting the cub with her body. When she finally stopped moving, her back was screaming, her lungs were raw, and the cub was pressed against her chest, alive. "You're safe," she whispered, then noticed something extraordinary. The cub's injured leg was already healing. She could watch the bone straightening beneath the fur, the wounds closing like time moving backward. And its eyes, those luminous eyes, held an intelligence that made her stomach drop. "What are you?" she breathed. A shadow fell across them both. Lyrian looked up to find herself surrounded by massive wolves, each one larger than any wolf should be. They stood in perfect formation, their eyes all holding that same supernatural glow, watching her with an intensity that felt almost calculating. The cub in her arms made a soft sound, and the largest wolf, black as midnight with a scarred muzzle, stepped forward. It lowered its massive head toward her, sniffing at the cub with its white crescent mark, then at her burned hands. Then it did something that shattered Lyrian's understanding of the world. The wolf's form rippled like water. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur receded. Where a wolf had stood, a man, now crouched naked, powerful, and impossibly beautiful. His hair was black as his fur had been, falling past shoulders marked with the same scars, but it was his eyes that held her frozen still, holding that ethereal light, still inhuman, still watching her with predatory intelligence. "You saved Thorn," the man said, his voice rough, as if rarely used. "You burned for him." Lyrian's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. The other wolves were changing too, men and women rising where beasts had stood, all naked, all watching her with those moon-touched gazes. The man reached toward her collar, his fingers stopping just before the iron. "A slave?" he said, and something dangerous flickered in his expression. "Yet you risked everything for one of ours." "I don't," I don't understand, Lyrian managed. He smiled then, revealing canines slightly too sharp to be human. You will. The world tilted sideways. The pain from her burns, the smoke in her lungs, the impossibility of what she was, seeing it all crash together. As darkness claimed her, the last thing she saw was him catching her as she fell, his ethereal eyes holding secrets she couldn't begin to imagine. Lyrian woke to the absence of pain. Her back, which should have been agony from the burns, felt merely warm. The iron collar that had chafed her neck for 17 years was gone. She bolted upright, hand flying to her throat, finding only smooth skin. Finally awake, she spun toward the voice. The man from the market sat in shadows at the room's edge, though room was generous. They were in a cave, she realized, but one transformed into living space, fur pelts on the floor, shelves carved into stone walls, crystals embedded in the ceiling that cast soft blue light. Where, her voice cracked, what did you do to me? Healed you. He rose with fluid grace that reminded her he wasn't human. The burns would have killed you by morning. And my collar? Destroyed. His gaze intensified. No one wearing, my mark will ever wear another's. Your mark? Lyrian's hand moved instinctively to her shoulder, where new skin tingled. In the crystal light, she could see it a crescent moon scar where the worst burn had been, but it was too perfect, too deliberate to be natural. A protection, he said. Nothing more. Unless what? Instead of answering, he moved closer. Even in worn leather pants and nothing else, he carried himself like royalty. I am Kale, he said, Alpha of the Shadow Moon Pack. The cub you saved, Thorn, is my brother's son. Lyrian, she replied automatically, then asked the question burning in her throat. You're werewolves. Actual werewolves. Shapeshifters, he corrected. Werewolf is a human word, twisted by fear and legend. We are more ancient than such simple terms. He studied her with those luminous eyes. You're not afraid. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. I've seen real monsters. They wear silk and buy children for grain. Something shifted in his expression. Approval, perhaps, or recognition. A commotion outside drew their attention. Voices raised in argument. Then a woman entered, tall, severe, with silver-streaked hair and the same moon-touched gaze. Kale, she said sharply. The gathering has begun. They're demanding answers about the human. I'm coming, Mira. But his eyes stayed on Lyrian. Wait, Lyrian said as he turned to leave. What happens to me now? I can't return to the merchant quarter. Valdrick will. Valdrick believes you died in the fire. Kale interrupted. He's already claiming compensation from the city council for his lost property. The casual cruelty of it, her death worth more to Valdrick than her life shouldn't have stung, but it did. Then where do I go? Kale paused at the cave entrance. That depends on what you are. What I am? I'm nobody. You walked through fire for a shifter child. You bear the moon mark without rejection. Your blood. He stopped himself. The gathering will decide. He left her with more questions than answers. Mira remained, her gaze dissecting. You truly don't know, do you? The woman said finally. Know what? Child, no ordinary human could have survived those burns. No ordinary human's blood would accept an alpha's mark. She approached, circling Lyrian like a predator. Tell me, what do you remember of your parents? Nothing. I was sold at 8 years old. Sold from where? Lyrian struggled to remember. North. Somewhere north. The merchant who sold me said I was payment for a debt, but a howl cut through the night, so loud it seemed to shake the cave walls. Then another, and another. A chorus of inhuman voices raised in what sounded like alarm. Mira's entire demeanor changed. Stay here, she commanded, shifting to wolf form in one fluid motion and racing out. But Lyrian had spent 17 years following orders. She counted to 10, then followed. The main cavern opened into chaos. Dozens of wolves. No, shifters in both forms, all facing the entrance where 3 figures in blood-red cloaks stood. Royal guards, but not from any local kingdom. These bore the emblem of the Bloodmoon crown, the ancient wolf-killer kingdom from the far north. By decree of His Majesty, the center guard announced, We seek the lost Luna. Our seers have confirmed she lives. Return her, and your pack will be spared. Kale, still in human form, stepped forward. There is no lost Luna here. The guard smiled coldly. Then you won't mind if we verify that ourselves. He pulled out a vial of silvery liquid. Moon, blessed water. It reveals royal shifter blood. Shall we test everyone here? Lyrian's mark burned like ice as the guard's eyes swept the crowd and landed directly on her. You there! The guard called out, his eyes locked on Lyrian. Step forward. Every shifter in the cavern turned to stare at her. Kale's expression was unreadable, but his body had tensed like a wolf before striking. She's human, Mira said quickly, moving to block Lyrian. A refugee from the fire, nothing more. The guard's smile widened. Then the moon-blessed water will prove it harmless to humans, after all. He uncorked the vial, and the scent that emerged made every shifter step back. It smelled of silver and starlight, of winter moons and ancient magic. But to Lyrian, it smelled of something else entirely. Home. It smelled like home she'd never known. No, she whispered, but her feet were already moving forward, drawn by something deeper than thought. Kale caught her arm. Don't, he said low enough that only she could hear. Whatever you are, whatever you're feeling, fight it. But the guard was already moving, flicking drops of the silvery water toward them. Where it hit Kyle's skin, nothing happened. But when a drop landed on Lyrian's scarred hand, light exploded from her skin. Not painful, but overwhelming silver-white radiance that filled the cavern and sent everyone stumbling back. Her collar's absence suddenly made sense. The iron hadn't just been removed, it had been suppressing something all along. Through the light, she could see her skin changing. Scars she'd carried for years were vanishing. Her matted, roughly cut hair was growing, transforming to silver white that matched the light pouring from her. And on her forehead, a mark was appearing, a lunar symbol that blazed like captured starfire. The lost Luna, the guard breathed, dropping to one knee. Princess Lyrian Bloodmoon, daughter of the murdered Luna Queen, heir to the... His words cut off in a gurgle. Kale's hand was around his throat, lifting him off the ground. You will not take her. Kale snarled, and his form was already shifting, not fully wolf, but something in between, something monstrous and magnificent. The other two guards drew silver swords, but the pack was already moving. Mira led the charge, her wolf form massive and terrible. The cavern erupted in violence, fangs against silver, claw against armor, ancient grudges given form. But Lyrian couldn't focus on the battle. The light inside her was building, 17 years of suppression breaking like a dam. Memories flooded back, not her own, but carried in her blood. A castle of white stone, a queen with her silver hair, singing lullabies about moon daughters. The night the assassins came, being bundled into a servant's arms, iron clasped around her throat to hide what she was. And something else, a younger child, barely walking, hidden in different arms. Make it stop, she gasped, falling to her knees. The power was too much. It would tear her apart. She could feel it seeking release, and if it escaped uncontrolled, it would kill everyone, guard and shifter alike. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind. Kale, still partially transformed, pulled her against his chest. Listen to my voice, he commanded. The power isn't your enemy. It's been caged, like you were. Don't fight it. Guide it. I don't know how. You do. His breath was hot against her ear. You walked through fire for a shifter child. You chose to save rather than survive. That's who you are, not this power. The power serves you, not the other way around. His words anchored her. The chaotic energy began to spiral inward rather than out, following the path of her will rather than her fear. The blinding light condensed, focused, controlled. When she opened her eyes, the battle had stopped. Everyone, shifter and guard alike, was staring at her in awe. She stood in a circle of crystallized moonlight. The cave floor transformed to silver glass beneath her feet. The remaining guards were backing toward the entrance. Tell your king, Lyrian heard herself say, though the voice seemed to come from somewhere ancient, that the lost Luna lives. But she is not lost anymore. The guards fled. Silence descended, broken only by the labored breathing of the wounded. Then, One by one, the shifters began to kneel. Even Mira, proud and fierce Mira, lowered her head in recognition. "Don't," Lyrian said, panic replacing power. "Please, I don't even know what I am." "You're the last of the Bloodmoon line," Kael said, still standing beside her, notably the only one not kneeling. "Your mother was the Luna Queen, able to command all shifter packs. Your father was human, which made you an abomination to some, a bridge between worlds to others." "They killed her because of me?" "They killed her because she refused to let them kill you." Mira rose, her expression softer now. "She sent you south with her most trusted servant, told her to hide you among humans until you were old enough to protect yourself. Your younger sister was sent east, to be hidden differently." "Sister?" The memory fragment suddenly made sense. "We don't know what became of her," Mira admitted. "She vanished into the Eastern Territories. But the servant who had me sold me, or died trying to protect you, and someone else found a valuable child to sell." Kael's hand found her shoulder, steadying. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is that you're here, and you're alive, and the Bloodmoon crown knows it. They'll come for me. Yes, they'll destroy your pack trying to get to me. Probably." She turned to face him, frustrated by his calm. "Then why aren't you throwing me out? Why did you fight for me?" His luminous eyes held hers, and for a moment, she saw past the alpha exterior to something raw underneath. "Because the moment you walked through fire for Thorn, you became pack. And pack," his hand moved from her shoulder to cup her face, thumb tracing the celestial mark on her forehead. "Pack is everything." The touch sent electricity through her entire body, not the painful power of before, but something warm, something that made her lean into his palm despite herself. "Besides," he added with a wolfish grin, "do you really think I'd let the Bloodmoon crown take you back to be their puppet queen? You're far too interesting for that fate." A howl echoed from outside a scout's warning. More people were coming. "We need to move," Mira said urgently. "The deeper caves—" "No," Lyrian interrupted, surprising herself with the authority in her voice. "I'm done running. I've been running since I was 8 years old." She looked at the assembled pack, these strangers who'd fought for her, then at Kael, who still hadn't removed his hand from her face. "Teach me," she said. "Teach me what I am, what this power means, and when they come again," the lunar symbol on her forehead pulsed with cold fire. "When they come again, we'll be ready." Kael studied her for a long moment, then smiled a real smile, not the predatory grin of before. "As you wish, princess." "Lyrian," she corrected. "Just Lyrian." "Lyrian," he agreed, and somehow her name on his lips sounded like a promise, a claim, and a challenge all at once. Another howl, closer now. The pack tensed, ready to fight or flee at their alpha's command. But Kael's eyes never left hers. What does the lost Luna command? The title should have felt wrong. She'd been property, nobody, a purchased girl worth a bag of grain. But standing there, surrounded by warriors who'd bled for her, power singing in her veins, a wolf king awaiting her word. "We prepare for war," she said, and every wolf in the cavern howled their approval to the moon. The training ground was a natural amphitheater carved into the mountain, lit by the pre-dawn sky. Lyrian's muscles screamed from 3 days of combat training, but Kael showed no mercy. "Again," he commanded, circling her in human form while she struggled to maintain her defensive stance. "I need a break," he lunged. Not with a wolf speed, but fast enough that she barely dodged, stumbling backward over the rocky ground. His hand caught her wrist, spinning her around until her back pressed against his chest, his arm across her throat in a hold that wasn't quite threatening. "The Bloodmoon guard won't give you breaks," he said against her ear, his breath making her shiver for reasons that had nothing to do with the mountain cold. "They've been hunting you for 17 years. When they come, I'll have power," she interrupted, trying to ignore how her body fitted against his, how his heartbeat felt through her back. "Power you can't control is worse than no power at all." He released her, stepping back. "Show me your light." Lyrian closed her eyes, reaching for that silver fire within. It came eagerly, too eagerly. Light erupted from her skin, wild and undirected. Kael grabbed her shoulders, grounding her. Focus, he ordered. The moon doesn't burn everything it touches. It illuminates. It guides. Be the moon. Don't let it be you. Easy for you to say, she gasped, struggling to contain the energy. You were born to this. Was I? His hands tightened on her shoulders. I was bitten at 15, turned against my will by a rabid shifter. Everything I am, I had to learn through pain and failure. The admission shocked her enough that the light flickered. She opened her eyes to find him watching her with an expression she'd never seen before, vulnerable, almost tender. You were human? Once. He released her, the moment passing. Mira found me half dead, taught me control, just as I'm teaching you. Before she could respond, a young shifter burst into the amphitheater. Iris, one of the scouts. Alpha, she panted. Merchants in the valley. They have captives. Wolf children. Kale's entire demeanor changed, predator rising to the surface. How many? 6 children, 4 merchants. They're heading to Valdrick's compound. Lyrian's blood turned to ice. Valdrick's compound? But he thinks I'm dead. He survived the fire and rebuilt quickly, Iris confirmed. He's expanded his trade. Says he's collecting exotic animals for the northern kingdoms. He's selling shifter children, Lyrian breathed. Then, louder, we have to stop them. We will, Kale said, already moving. Gather the pack. No. Lyrian surprised herself with the command. Let me go. Both Kale and Iris stared at her. I know Valdrick's compound better than anyone, she continued. I know every secret passage, every guard rotation from my years there. Absolutely not, Kale said flatly. You can barely control your power. Then come with me. She stepped closer to him. Just us. A full pack will be noticed, but 2 people? We can get in, free the children, and get out before... A child's scream echoed up from the valley, carried on the mountain wind. Kale's control shattered. His form rippled, wolf rising to the surface, then forcing it back down. When he spoke, his voice was more growl than words. Fine, but you follow my lead. They descended the mountain as the sun set, Lyrian in a borrowed cloak, Kale shifting between forms as needed. The rebuilt merchant compound squatted in the valley, higher walls than before, new iron gates, but the same stench of misery Lyrian knew too well. The servant's entrance, she whispered, leading him to a section of wall. Same weak point as before. They slipped through into shadows that reeked of memory. Every corner held ghosts of her past, the post where she'd been disciplined, the courtyard where she'd slept with the dogs. Focus, Kale murmured, sensing her distress. The children were in iron cages, 6 wolf pups huddled together, too exhausted or terrified to maintain human form. The single guard was drowsing at his post. Then Lyrian saw who was examining the children through the bars, and her control nearly shattered entirely. Valdrick. Older, wealthier, but unmistakably the man who'd owned her. He was poking at the pups with a stick, making notes on a ledger. The northern lords will pay triple for young ones, he was saying to another merchant. Easier to break, easier to train. Though I had one once, little silver-haired thing never could fully break her. Still have the scars from where she bit me. He laughed. Should have killed her when I had the chance. Probably dead in that fire anyway. Rage, white-hot and absolute, flooded through Lyrian. The crescent brand on her forehead began to burn. No, Kale whispered urgently. Not yet, but it was too late. Valdrick had noticed them, his piggy eyes widening in shock. You, he breathed. You're supposed to be dead. I saw the burnt collar in the ruins. Disappointed? Lyrian stepped into the torchlight, letting her hood fall back. The silver-white hair he'd always forced her to cover with ash now gleamed like starlight. Guards! Valdrick shrieked. Guards! They came running, a dozen men with crossbows and silver-tipped bolts. Kale shifted instantly, massive wolf form positioning between Lyrian and the weapons. The Grain Girl lives, Valdrick sneered, gaining confidence with his guards present. And she's brought a pet. Kill the wolf, but take her alive. She's worth a fortune to the Bloodmoon crown now. The guards raised their crossbows. Time slowed. Lyrian saw the bolts release, saw Kale bunch his muscles to leap, saw death coming for them both. and the moon answered her fury. The silver light that exploded from Lyrian wasn't the wild, uncontrolled burst of before. This was focused, purposeful, protective. It struck the crossbow bolts mid-flight, disintegrating them to ash. The wave continued outward, and when it hit the guards, they collapsed, not dead, but unconscious, their weapons clattering uselessly to the ground. Valdric stumbled backward, his face purple with terror. Witch! Monster! Monster? Lyrian advanced on him, her entire being radiating that cold silver light. You bought an 8-year-old child for grain. You worked her until her hands bled. You put her in cages with animals when she displeased you. You were property. You were nothing. I was never nothing. The lunar symbol on her forehead blazed brighter. I was the lost, Luna of the Bloodmoon line, and you put a collar on me like a dog. She raised her hand, and Valdric rose with it, suspended in silver light. His face went from purple to white as he finally understood what stood before him. Please, he whimpered. Mercy, like the mercy you showed those children. Her power pulsed, and the cages holding the wolf pups shattered. They tumbled free, immediately running to Kael, who herded them protectively behind him while maintaining his wolf form. Lyrian. Kael's voice, human again though she hadn't seen him shift. That's enough. Is it? She turned her glowing eyes to him. Do you know what he does to the ones who don't sell? Do you know what happens to shifter children who can't control their changes? I know. His hand found her shoulder, warmth against her cold fire. But if you kill him like this, in cold blood, you become what they say we are. Monsters. The light around Valdric flickered as she wrestled with her rage. He deserves... Yes, Kael agreed. But you deserve better than to be his executioner. And these children need to see mercy, not more violence. For a moment, the courtyard hung in perfect balance. Lyrian's justified rage, Kael's steadying presence, Valdric suspended between justice and mercy. Then voices echoed from beyond the walls. Many voices. Armed voices. The city watch, Valdric gasped. They'll kill you all. Lyrian dropped him. He crumpled to the ground, gasping. Run, she told him. Run far and fast, and never trade in lives again. Because next time, I won't have someone to remind me of mercy. Valdric scrambled away, blubbering, slipping in his own terror as he fled. We need to go, Kael said urgently. Can you carry 2? Lyrian looked at the 6 pups, then at him, confused. Then he shifted not to wolf, but to that in-between form she'd seen once before. Magnificent and terrible, he scooped up 4 pups in his massive arms. Understanding, Lyrian grabbed the remaining 2, and they ran. Behind them, guards flooded the compound, but they were already over the wall, already disappearing into the forest. The pups clung to them, whimpering, and Lyrian found herself humming a lullaby rising from genetic memory her conscious mind didn't hold. They didn't stop until they reached the foothills. Kael set down his charges and shifted back, immediately checking each pup for injuries. Lyrian watched him work, gentle despite his size, and something warm bloomed in her chest that had nothing to do with power. They're from the Eastern Pack, he said grimly. Taken in a raid. Their families are probably dead. Then they'll join yours? If they choose. He looked up at her, and his expression made her breath catch. That was extraordinary what you did back there. The control, the precision. I almost killed him, but you didn't. He stood, moving closer. You found the line between justice and revenge. That's what makes a true Luna, not just power, but wisdom. I'm not really a Luna, I'm just the woman who walked through fire for a strange pup, who faced down the man who enslaved her, who saved 6 children tonight. His hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her celestial mark. You're exactly who you're meant to be. The pups had fallen asleep in a pile, exhausted. The moon was rising, full and bright, and Kael was looking at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting, something loved. Kael, she whispered. He leaned closer, and for a moment she hoped he might kiss her. Then a howl split the night. Not a warning, but a summons. Urgent. The pack, he said, pulling back. Something's wrong. They ran again, this time with the pups following in a stumbling line. The base of the mountain was chaos shifters in both forms, some bleeding, all agitated. Mira met them, her face grim. "Bloodmoon soldiers," she reported. 50 of them, with silver weapons and mountain ash. They've made camp at the valley's entrance. "Demanding?" Kale asked. "The Luna. They say they'll burn the forest if she's not delivered by dawn." Mira paused. "And Kale," they claimed to have her sister. Every eye turned to Lyrian. "My sister?" Lyrian's voice cracked. "She's alive?" "A girl named Celeste, 15 years old, silver hair hidden with dye. They say she's been in the palace all along, raised as a servant." Mira's expression darkened. "They'll trade her life for yours." The pack fell silent. 50 soldiers. The entire pack numbered barely 30, including elders and these new pups. "It's a trap," Kale said flatly. "Of course it's a trap," Lyrian agreed. "But if there's even a chance she's real, that she's been trapped there because of what I am, then we get her out," Kale said, surprising everyone. "But not by sacrificing you." "How?" "The palace is a fortress." "Not during the Bloodmoon festival," Mira interjected thoughtfully. 3 nights from now. The palace opens to all for the Peyton celebration. Masks, costumes, even shifters could walk among them unnoticed. "It's still dangerous," someone argued. "Everything we do now is dangerous." Lyrian turned to address the pack. "But I'm done being reactive. If they want to play games with innocent lives, then let's change the rules." She looked at each pack member in turn. "We go to the festival, but not in secret. We go as ourselves, publicly, peacefully. Let the common people see that we're not monsters." "That's insane," someone whispered. "That's brilliant," Kale countered, understanding lighting his eyes. "They can't attack us publicly without revealing their own brutality. And if this sister exists, we find her and offer her the choice my mother never got." Lyrian finished. Another howl echoed from outside a scout's warning. "They're moving," Mira reported. "Surrounding us from all sides." Kale shifted partially, scenting the air, his expression darkening. Not just soldiers. They brought hunters. The packs. Fear was palpable. Hunters, elite killers trained specifically to track and destroy shifters. "How long until dawn?" Lyrian asked. 6 hours, Mira answered. 6 hours to find a miracle. Lyrian's mark pulsed, and with it came a memory from her bloodline, a desperate night, surrounded by enemies, and a choice between surrender and something else. Something dangerous. Something no Luna had attempted in generations. "The Luna's call," she said suddenly. Every shifter went rigid. "That's a myth," Mira said carefully. "Is it?" Lyrian looked at Kale. "Tell me about the Luna's call." He was watching her with something between awe and terror. "Legend says a true Luna can call all shifters to her aid. Not just her pack, but every shifter within 100 miles. But, the last Luna who tried it died. The power required. It consumed her." Lyrian nodded slowly. "Then I'd better not fail." She walked to the cavern's center, ignoring the protests behind her. The moon was directly overhead now, its light streaming through the cave's openings. "Lyrian, don't," Kale started. "Do you trust me?" she asked without turning. Silence. Then, quietly, "With everything." She smiled. "Then let me save our family." Lyrian raised her arms to the moon and opened herself completely to its light. The power flooded in not just her own, but something older, deeper. The voice of every Luna who'd come before. The call that erupted from her throat wasn't quite a howl, wasn't quite a scream. It was primal, commanding, undeniable. It rolled across the mountains like thunder, through the valleys like wind, into the bones of every shifter who heard it. And they answered. The first response came from the east, a lone howl that multiplied into 5, then 20. From the north, an entire pack's voice raised an answer. West, south, from every direction, the responses cascaded like dominoes across the mountain range. Lyrian stood at the epicenter, silver light pouring from her in waves. Each response strengthened her, each pack's acknowledgement feeding back into the call. But Kale had been right, the power required was immense. She could feel it pulling at her life force, threatening to hollow her out from the inside. "Hold on," Kale's voice, distant through the roaring in her ears. His arms wrapped around her from behind, his chest solid against her back. I've got you. We've all got you. She felt it then, the pack bond. Not just KL, but every member of the Shadow Moon pack, linking their strength to hers. Mira's fierce determination, the pup's innocent trust, even the newly rescued children, adding their small lights to her blazing star. The soldiers in the valley below must have heard it too. Through the shared consciousness of the call, Lyrian could feel shifters converging on their position. The Bloodmoon soldiers, so confident with their 50 men, suddenly faced hundreds of wolves emerging from the darkness. Magnificent, Kale breathed against her ear, and she realized her consciousness had expanded beyond her body. She was seeing through every shifter's eyes simultaneously, the terrified soldiers forming defensive circles, their silver weapons suddenly inadequate against the sheer numbers. But among them, she spotted something else. 5 figures in black cloaks, unmoved by the approaching wolves, hunters, and the one in the center. No, she gasped, recognizing the cruel face from her inherited memories. Theron Bloodmoon, my father's brother, the man who'd orchestrated her mother's murder, who'd spent 17 years hunting her. Release the Moonbane, Theron commanded calmly. The hunters threw something into the air, a fine silver powder that sparkled in the moonlight. Where it touched the approaching wolves, they collapsed, shifting involuntarily back to human form, writhing in agony. Did you think we came unprepared? Theron's voice carried on the wind. I've hunted your kind for 2 decades. I know every weakness, every limitation. Even the Luna's call can be broken. He was right. She could feel the connection fragmenting as more wolves fell to the Moonbane. The power drain was becoming critical. Black spots danced in her vision. Lyrian. Kale turned her to face him, his eyes blazing with emotion. There's another way. What? The mate bond. If you accept it, our power becomes yours. Not just strength, but stability. Anchor. Among our kind, the bond is sacred. It amplifies both partners' abilities. She understood immediately what he was offering. Among shifters, a mate bond was permanent, unbreakable. It would tie her to him, to this pack, forever. No more running, no more solitude. You don't have to, she started. I want to. His hand cupped her face with infinite tenderness. I've wanted to from the moment you walked through fire for Thorn. You are my mate, Lyrian Bloodmoon. The only question is whether I'm yours. The Moonbane was spreading. More wolves were falling. Soon, Theron's forces would reach the cavern. But Lyrian wasn't looking at the approaching danger. She was looking at Kale, scarred, powerful, beautiful Kale, who'd shown her what family meant, who'd stood between her and danger without hesitation, who was offering not just his power but his heart. Yes, she whispered, then louder, with absolute certainty. Yes. He kissed her, and the world exploded. The mate bond snapped into place like a lightning strike, but instead of pain, there was completeness. She could feel him, not just his physical presence, but his soul. His wolf recognized her wolf, except she didn't have a wolf. She had something else, something that had been sleeping, waiting for this moment. Her form shifted not to wolf, but to something unprecedented. A being of pure moonlight, retaining her human shape, but transformed into living starfire. The Moonbane that had been creeping toward them evaporated at her touch. The fallen wolves rose, healed by her light. Impossible, Theron breathed from the valley. You killed my mother, Lyrian said, and her voice echoed from every wolf throat simultaneously. You hunted me for 17 years. You've terrorized our kind to near extinction. She descended from the cavern, not walking but floating, her feet barely touching the ground. The assembled wolves parted before her. Kale followed in his hybrid form, magnificent and terrible as her guardian shadow. You're an abomination, Theron spat, drawing a blade that gleamed with poison. Half-breeds should not exist. I am not half anything. She raised her hand, and Theron rose with it, suspended as Valdric had been. I am whole. I am the bridge between worlds my mother died believing in. Kill her, Theron commanded his hunters. They tried. Crossbow bolts, silver nets, wolfsbane grenades, everything they threw at her simply dissolved in her light. But she wasn't attacking, Kale realized. She was protecting, shielding every wolf while neutralizing the threats. "This is what you feared," she said to Theron. "Not our violence, but our unity. Not our beast nature, but our humanity." She set him down gently, and his legs buckled. Around them, his soldiers had dropped their weapons, overwhelmed by the impossibility of fighting hundreds of shifters led by a living moon. But then Theron smiled coldly. "Did you think I came with only one card to play?" He raised his hand, and from behind the soldier ranks, 2 guards dragged forward, a figure, a girl, perhaps 15, with silver hair dulled by ash, wearing servant's gray. Her hands were bound with iron, but her eyes, those were their mother's eyes. "Celeste," Lyrian breathed. "Your sister," Theron confirmed. Raised in the palace as a servant, never knowing what she was, the iron kept her powers dormant, kept her human. But blood tells, doesn't it? He pressed a knife to Celeste's throat. "Stand down, or she dies." The assembled wolves growled, but Lyrian raised her hand for silence. "Sister?" Celeste's voice was small, confused. "I don't understand." "You're the second daughter of Luna Queen Seraphina," Lyrian said gently. "You're my sister, and you're about to discover what you truly are." With a gesture, the iron shackles on Celeste's wrists shattered. The suppression lifted, and Celeste gasped as 17 years of dormant power awakened at once. But something unexpected happened. Where Lyrian channeled pure moonlight, Celeste's transformation was different. Her form shifted not into a wolf, but into a white fox, sleek and swift. She twisted from Theron's grip with inhuman speed, leaving him holding empty air. "A fox shifter?" Mira breathed. The old bloodlines speak of this when human and shifter blood mix. Sometimes new forms emerge. The fox darted between the guards' legs, creating chaos in their ranks. In the confusion, the assembled wolves pressed forward. Theron's forces broke, fleeing into the night. "This isn't over," Theron snarled as he retreated. The crown will hear of this," Lyrian interrupted. "They'll hear that the lost Luna lives, that she commands hundreds of packs, that she offers peace to those who accept it and war to those who don't." She turned to address the assembled shifters and the human witnesses who'd been drawn by the commotion. "For too long we've lived in shadow and fear, human and shifter, divided by prejudice and old wounds. But we are all children of the same moon, the same earth. Today, that changes." Celeste, back in human form, stumbled toward her. Lyrian caught her, holding her close. "I remember you," Celeste whispered. "In dreams, I remembered a lullaby. You used to sing to me." "And I'll sing to you again," Lyrian promised. "You're safe now. You're home." Through their bond, she felt Kale's pride and love wash over her. The mate bond had stabilized her power. But more than that, it had completed something in her soul she hadn't known was missing. "What happens now?" someone called out. Lyrian looked at the assembled packs, at her newfound sister, at her mate, then at the moon still shining overhead. "Now we build something new," she said. "A world where no child is sold for grain, where no one has to hide what they are, where strength comes from unity, not division." She raised her hand, and her light spread outward one final time, not as a weapon, but as a blessing, touching every person present, human and shifter alike, leaving them with a warm glow that would fade but never be forgotten. "The lost Luna has risen," she declared, "and with her, a new age begins." 3 weeks had passed since the Luna's call. The Shadow Moon territory had transformed into something unprecedented, a sanctuary where multiple packs coexisted, drawn by Lyrian's presence and the promise of change she represented. But change, Lyrian was learning, came with a price. "Another message from the Bloodmoon Crown," Mira announced, entering the strategy cave where Lyrian sat with Kale and the other pack leaders. "They're offering a treaty." "Let me guess," Kale said, not looking up from the map. "Our complete surrender?" "More interesting than that." Mira's expression was unreadable. "They want to meet, the king himself, at the Bloodmoon Festival, a public negotiation." "It's a trap," said Ransom, leader of the Eastern Pack. "Everything's a trap," Lyrian replied, studying the message. But a public meeting means witnesses. He can't simply attack without destroying his reputation. Through their bond, she felt Kale's concern. Since accepting their mate bond, they could feel each other's emotions, share strength, even communicate without words. It's too dangerous, his thoughts whispered to hers. Everything we do is dangerous, she replied silently. But hiding won't change anything. There's more, Mira continued. Celeste has been having visions. They found Celeste in the healer's cave, her fox, silver hair gleaming in the crystal light. Since her awakening, her unique heritage had manifested in unexpected ways, not just the fox form, but glimpses of possible futures. I saw the festival, she said without preamble. 2 paths. In one, blood stains the palace steps. In the other, she paused, her young face troubled. In the other, the crown passes to new hands. Whose hands? Lyrian asked. Celeste met her eyes. Yours. The Bloodmoon festival arrived with all its pageantry. Lyrian entered the palace grounds openly, flanked by KL and a delegation of pack leaders. No disguises, no pretense. The crowd parted before them, whispers following in their wake. King Marcus Bloodmoon waited on the palace steps, an older man with cold eyes and their mother's cheekbones twisted into cruel lines. Beside him stood Theron, still bearing scars from their last encounter. Niece, the king said, his voice carrying across the square. You've grown to look like your mother. Before I had her killed, of course. Gasps rippled through the public crowd. The admission, so casual, so public. I've come to offer you a choice, uncle, Lyrian said, her voice equally clear. Abdicate. End the persecution of shifters. Let peace reign. Marcus laughed. And if I refuse? Then I challenge you for the crown. By the old laws, the ones you used to justify murdering your own sister, any blood heir can claim the throne through combat. The crowd erupted. This was unprecedented. Theron stepped forward, blade already drawn. You have no authority. I am Lyrian Bloodmoon, daughter of Queen Seraphina, blood of the founding line. Her lunar mark blazed to life. I am the lost Luna returned, and by the laws you claim to uphold, my challenge stands. Very well. Marcus stood, and for the first time, Lyrian saw him for what he was, not entirely human. His eyes held a predator's gleam. But not combat. That's so primitive. Let's make this interesting. He pulled out a vial moon, blessed water, like the one that had first revealed her. Nature. A test of blood, he announced. Let the moon itself judge who should rule. Before anyone could stop him, he drank the entire vial. The transformation was horrifying. Marcus screamed as his body shifted not into a wolf or fox, but something monstrous. He'd been experimenting on himself, she realized, trying to steal shifter power through alchemy and blood magic. I took their essence, he gasped through the change. Hundreds of shifters, their blood distilled, consumed. The abomination that rose where the king had stood was neither human nor beast, but a writhing mass of stolen power. Different animal parts fused in impossible ways. Kill them all. Theron commanded the guards, but the soldiers hesitated. This monster had been their king? The creature lunged at Lyrian. Kale intercepted it in his hybrid form, but the thing's unnatural strength sent him flying. It turned on Celeste next, drawn perhaps by blood connection. No! Lyrian's power erupted, but the creature seemed to absorb it, growing larger. It feeds on shifter power. Kale's thought reached her as he struggled to rise. It's made of it. Then Lyrian understood. She couldn't fight it with shifter power, but she was only half shifter. Her human side, the side that had survived slavery, that had chosen compassion over survival, that had loved despite everything, that was her true strength. She walked toward the creature unarmed, no power emanating from her at all. Uncle, she said softly, I forgive you. The creature froze. For killing our mother. For hunting us. For all the pain you've caused. She reached out her hand. But this isn't strength. It's fear. Let go. For a moment, Marcus's human eyes appeared in the monster's face, filled with confusion and something that might have been regret. Then the stolen power began to unravel. The different essences he'd consumed separated, dissipating like smoke. What remained was a broken old man who collapsed at Lyrian's feet. "The crown!" "He," whispered. "It's yours. It was always yours." He died there, on the palace steps, as the assembled crowd watched in stunned silence. Theron tried to flee, but found his path blocked by Celeste in her fox form, teeth bared. "Your Majesty," Mira said formally, kneeling before Lyrian, "the throne is yours." One by one, the crowd followed suit, human and shifter alike, kneeling before the lost Luna who had returned not with violence, but with mercy. "Rise," Lyrian commanded, her voice carrying new authority. "All of you, rise. There will be no more kneeling, no more division. We are one kingdom, one people." She looked at Kale, who stood proud beside her, her mate, her anchor, her equal. "Will you rule beside me?" she asked. His smile was answer enough, but he spoke for the crowd to hear. "Always." As the blood moon rose overhead, it shone silver a new age, beginning with the girl once sold for grain, now crowned in starlight, her shifter mate at her side, her fox, sister at her back, and a united kingdom spread before them. The lost Luna had not just been found. She had found herself, and in doing so, had shown everyone, human and shifter alike, that they were never truly lost at all.